Good morning. With only 5 days, 8 hours and 8 minutes at the time of recording this video, it's 20 past 8 in the morning, Celtic Park time. That's when we take on St Mirren, first game of the season, first game of the SPFL season, and there's a lot of transfer speculation. One of them is about this player from Manchester United, and he took to social media last night. It's something that he doesn't really do, because a bit like Callum McGregor and a bit like James Forrest, he doesn't do social media. I think it makes him a great fit for Celtic, being only 19-year-old and not doing social media. But he did take to social media last night, and he posted this post, and then he took it down, and it looks like he's struggling to decide which team he should go to. There has been suggestions that Celtic have made an offer for the player, but there's also been teams in France have came knocking on the door for the player. The fact that Celtic may possibly have Champions League football, we hope and pray. Will that sway the player to come to Celtic at £5 million? It's the type of player that we should be buying, not bringing on loan. But we did loan Cameron Carter-Vickers before we bought him. We loaned Jota before we bought him. We loaned Paulo Bernardo before we bought him. So you can understand, hopefully there is an option to buy the 19-year-old, and we'll just need to wait and see. There are other players that Celtic have been linked with this week, and Chris Sutton's been at it again. Chris Sutton's been talking about the transfer window. Anyway, the fact that Simpson Pussy could be the next player to come into Celtic from Manchester City. Do you think it would be a good deal or not? Tell me in the comments section. Loaning in a defender, I think ultimately he's the type of defender that would be brought in to take over from Cameron Carter-Vickers. I think that Celtic do see that as a longer term option than Cameron Carter-Vickers, but you never know with Celtic. Anyway, another player that's been linked with Celtic is a 21-year-old, and Celtic have went in with an offer of 1.5 million, a 1.7 million, and then I think 3 million. But the Dutch outfit are still holding out for around about £5 to £6.5 million from Celtic. For Jacob, Brendan Rodgers, that's another player that he wants in. He wants a forward in. It looks like the Bill Wisher thing seems to be falling by the wayside, unless we're going to bring in a couple of wingers, but who knows. Chris Sutton says that we still need a left back after Greg Taylor leaving Celtic last season. Well, just a couple of weeks ago, really. Greg Taylor, Chris Sutton says, is a big loss playing that inverted role. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Tony Ralston play the inverted role. We've seen Inamura play the inverted role coming in from the other side. Chris Sutton says that he always felt that Greg in one-on-one I don't know why he's talking about Greg Taylor. He's left the club. To move on. We all know that, Inamura might not be the player that Brendan Rodgers wants as backup to Kieran Tierney. But is there any use talking about what Greg Taylor did for the team? He was a fantastic servant over the years. He won a lot of medals. He had a healthy income, and now he's moved on to something that he thinks is better. Chris Sutton says he was good at the inverted role and integral to the dominating in the middle of the park and played it very well. It's going to be really difficult to replace that in respect. Well, you change formation. It's as simple as that. And if you look at the way that Celtic have been playing with two holding midfield players, I sometimes think, does Chris Sutton actually watch Celtic games during it's like he doesn't. It's like he sees some bits in the media and then he just comments about it. I mean, somebody asked the big man, do you actually watch any Celtic pre-season games? Because there has been quite a few formation changes. He also goes on about Jeffrey Schlupp, who's left and ended back at Norwich, So what? He was never the answer. He was 32-year-old. He got a 1-year deal at Norwich. He was never a long-term... If we went for Jeffrey Schlupp, it was a stick and plaster scenario. It was... the guy was on 60 grand a week. How he managed to get a contract to 60 grand a week, I'll never know it. He was never going to... I don't know what he's getting at Norwich, to be fair, but who cares? And then Chris Sutton goes on about losing Nicky Kuhn. If anything happens with Dyson Maeda, you're in trouble. James Forrest, you've got Yang, you've got Marco Tilio. How long that will last, the love affair, because Marco wants out. And it was reported over a week and a half ago now that Marco was on his way to Austria. James Forrest is a brilliant player, but he's getting on a bit. Maybe he'll be brilliant against this season. It wouldn't surprise me. But he can play in those games. Can he play in all those games? I've said about James Forrest. James Forrest for me is going to be your impact player. That's the way that you use someone like James Forrest at this end of his career. Is someone that can come on and scare the living daylights out of defenders. He's still got pace at his age. 34 is not old when it comes to terms of pace. I mean, the younger guys in their 20s will probably leave him for dust. But when it comes to it, James Forrest is a fantastic player to have in the squad. Not only for what he brings and the respect that he has in the squad, but to bring on as an impact player the last 10-15 minutes of the game. The last thing that you'll want to see in an SPFL game is James Forrest coming on when you're maybe getting beat 1 or 2-0, or even when if you're lucky enough to be 1-1 or 0-0. Seeing James Forrest coming on, knowing what he can do, I think it's a fantastic position for him to be in. Goes on about Yang, says that he's not consistent enough. Yes, we all know that. But, maybe this could be his season. Chris Sutton's spending a lot of time, obviously, that's what he gets paid to do, is to talk about Celtic in the media. But he is asking for kind of a little bit calm now as the season is about to start. I don't think that we'll get calm until the transfer window is completely slammed shut. I know that it did close for a brief time. We forget about that, didn't we? It seems that long ago now that the window shut for the space of 6 days. We've all forgotten about that for that silly club competition that was played in America. Anyway, talking about Kyogo, who cares? Kyogo left in December. Well, Shin Yamada has arrived, says Chris Sutton. He's convinced that he's still to be convinced if he could fill Kyogo's boots. Did you watch the game, Chris? Anyway, Celtic have been linked with a midfielder in more Celtic transfer speculation news this morning. Well, it came in last night. It's been one it's kind of been going around for a while, this one. Josh Brownhill has confirmed that he's departing from Burnley after a couple of months after leading them back to the Premiership. Brendan Rodgers is said to be keen on taking Brownhill to Celtic. West Ham are looking at him, Bristol City. He's a player that is at the wrong end of the spectrum age-wise, but it would give Brendan Rodgers someone a little bit older in the midfield, which suggests there may be some movement for me in the midfield if we're going to bring in. So he did score 18 goals last season from midfield. You can understand why Brendan wants to bring him in. He's out of contract. There we go, I said it. He's a free. Yeah. Brendan Rodgers did say a couple of a week or so ago now that he wants to bring in experience. He wants to bring in ambition. Austin Trusty's admitted that it was a gut punch and leaves him with an appetite for more after the Scottish Cup final. He said it hurts, it still hurts, and I've got the hunger to finish the job this season. Although fans and other people are not saying it's too early to talk about the prospects of trebles, it is a target that the Celtic players will have spoken about, as they do every single summer. They sit down and have a conversation about their objectives for the season. Individual players talk about individual goal tallies that they want to achieve. Adam Ida, will he be at Celtic? Will he score more than 20 goals? Yes, if he's still at Celtic. I think he will be at Celtic. Can't see Celtic moving him on. Regardless of what some people are saying online, I don't think that Celtic are in a position to sell someone like Adam Ida without bringing in another proven goal scorer. Now, Shin Yamada may be able to fill the void left by Kyogo Furiashi, but if we sell Adam Ida, we then need another striker. Because Shin Yamada coming in, and if Adam Ida goes out, it means we need to bring in another striker. Are we going to bring in a top quality striker? Are we going to spend more than £2 or £3 million on a player? The way that we're going, it seems very unlikely. The fact that Austin Trusty admits that missing out on the treble felt like a punch in the guts tells you all you need to know about the mindset of the players going into the brand new season that starts in 5 days, 7 hours and 58 minutes now at the time of recording this at 8:31 Celtic Park time. Anyway, for me it's imperative that the players have that hunger again this season, and going into it means that Brendan Rodgers is doing his job behind the scenes. Some may think that he's not doing his job and he's too focused on what's not happening in the transfer window, but you can only push with the Tadger you've got. The treble was in their sights last season. He said, Aberdeen, we'd battered them from pillar to post all season, and then the Dons ripped up the script at Hampden. It's true. We did. We annihilated them. If you think back to the annihilation at Hampden earlier on that season, I mean, Aberdeen were out on a revenge mission, weren't they? Because let's face it, I mean, Aberdeen last season, we forget this. We forget how good Aberdeen were last season. The fact that the Runners, on a head-to-head for a good part of the season, they were on the same points tally as us. And then I think they dropped about 3 points behind us. And then we went to Hampden and played them. We annihilated them in Hampden. And then they were in free fall. It was like we stole something from the heart of Aberdeen at Hampden that day. And they, rightly so, says we're going to take it back. We're going to show that we're not as bad as Aberdeen, for me, should have been pushing to finish second last season, but they ran out of steam. Can they do the same this season? Well, wouldn't you wait and see? Who cares? It's all about Celtic, really. But anyway, Celtic in the Champions League. We're going to the qualifier, and it's had Peter Grant talking about the fact that it's ridiculous that you have teams in England where you have 5 teams that just walk straight into it. I think that it's a club competition that needs renamed, because it's no longer the Champions League. It should not be called the Champions League. It should be the invited league for rich clubs, and then clubs that just manage to get in. I think the name of the club, competition in Europe by UEFA, the Champions League. I mean, tell me what you think in the comments. The fact that there's so many nations like Scotland that have to go through qualifying rounds to get in to play the Premier Tournament in Europe, where you get nations like Spain, England, Italy, France just rocking up and getting as many teams in as they want. I just think that it devalues the competition. And I mean, you could say, yeah, well, Spurs are in it because they won the Europa. I mean, there's Aston Villa were in it last year, and I mean, when was the last time Aston Villa won anything? No disrespect to Aston Villa, because they tanked us, but if you want to call something a Champions League, a League of Champions, which is meant to be called, and that's what it is. That's the whole ethos of it. It's not really. I mean, it is all about money, and we're not bemoaning the money, because let's face it, if Celtic win the double-headed game that's coming up in just under a month's time, it's a £40 million bank day, isn't it? It's £40 million in the bank, and the club will not knock that. They're looking to generate between 20 to 30 million this season again in revenue from merchandise, added on to the 40 million from Champions League, takes it to a nice little bunch. Added on the money from season tickets, and then the pittance that you get for TV revenue for Scottish football. It does put that into perspective, doesn't it? But anyway, it's the start of a new season. We're all jolly that it is happening. Brendan Rodgers is after a minimum of 3 players this week. Will he get his wish? I'm not too sure. The fact that he is still after a winger in Jacob, and Celtic are low balling it. The fact that we're making moves for a younger defender. Remember, there was other defenders that were linked with at the end of the window that were of bigger stature and cost about 5 million, but Celtic seem reluctant to go down that road. Will we bring in the loan player from Manchester City? Has he got things to think about, as his social media may suggest? And it was quickly taken down. It's an interesting one, that, because he's looking at it and he's maybe got 2 or 3 teams that are interested in the player, and he's like, who do I go to? who would be the best for my career. Anyway, tell me your thoughts in the comments section. We'll be live tonight at 8 p.m. Celtic part-time. And if there's any Celtic breaking news today, I'm sure that we'll jump on a live this afternoon just to get an afternoon update. On that note, have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are, Celtic fans all around the world.